What's up, Squadron? Aviation has given me a ton of amazing experiences. And more importantly, it's introduced me to a whole new family of friends. Join us tonight because we're cleared direct for some hangar flying. I'm Ryan Dembroski, and this is SuperAero Live. What is up, SuperAero Squadron, SuperAero friends? How are you tonight? It's Wednesday, which can only mean one thing. Well, two things. One, I'm exhausted from being a dad. And two, it's time for SuperAero Live. Let's get into it. Before we get started, make sure you smash the like button, hit the share, subscribe. Oh my goodness, can you tell my kids got into my brain today? They were just screaming the whole time, guys. Just screaming at everything. I want chocolate. I don't want chocolate. I want this specific chocolate. It's hard to be a dad. Anyway, also, big thanks to all the patron supporters, the SuperAero Squadron, who support this channel. You saw their names kind of at the end there. Really awesome to have you guys supporting us. And if you want to join the Squadron, you can join us tonight for a little hangout after the show. We do a little Zoom call, talk smack about other YouTubers. It's a good time. So that'll be after this. It'll be fun. And before we get to our guest tonight, I got to say, last week was pretty cool. Learned a lot about cameras on airplanes and how to be safe. Also learned that you should not put a camera on the rudder of a Cirrus. We've all seen that video. Anyway, let's get to it. Oh, before I do, next week, Thunderbird 3. So I'm going to go cry myself to sleep with anxiety after this show. And I'm not nervous about this show, because it's my good friend Herwald Mester's here. Hey, Herwald, what's up, man?
Ryan. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for sitting through that awkward and long intro, but you're my friend, so you have to.
That's right. Whatever you need, buddy.
So Herwald, really excited to have you on the show. We've been talking about having you on for a while. And the big reason, well, here, this is why, this video clip here, you work at a pretty cool place. So I don't know if maybe you could tell me a little bit about what is, for people who don't know you in the Milwaukee area. A lot of pilots know you in the Milwaukee area. For people who don't know you, what do you do, man?
Yeah, so I work for Milwaukee County, which operates both Mitchell and Timmerman airports, so MKE and MWC, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs and Marketing for the County Airport Division. So that involves special events, social media, news releases, media relations, the websites, basically, the overall customer experience for users of both airports.
It's like you've had to tell someone that before.
A couple times.
So we're watching some beauty clips here that you guys had shot at the airfield. International, for people who are watching, that we've got viewers from, and by the way, hi to everyone in the chat. I mean, we see some Milwaukee folks, but Vincent's here too. I see some new names. We've got 72 Papa's here, Jason's here, Zach Sherman's here. Wait for his killer jokes. But Pilot Goal 62, I don't remember if I recognize that name. Great to have you here as well, guys. Some people from not in the Milwaukee area, Herwald, I guess is what I'm getting to. Can you tell us just some stats about MKE, so we can kind of, for people who aren't in the area, they might understand how large of an airport that is?
Yeah, so this would be for a normal non-COVID year. We see about 130,000 operations, so that's takeoffs and landings. We're actually currently the only airport in Wisconsin or Illinois with service from all 4 domestic airlines. And it's about 2,500 acres, 5 runways. And then Timmerman has 2 paved runways and 2 sod runways. An interesting fact about Timmerman is that as far as I haven't been to every airport, of course, but it's the only airport I know of that has sod runways and a control tower. So it makes it a really nice training airport. I'm passionate about both airports, and happy to talk about them tonight.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm focusing on Mitchell just because I think you know, although I didn't know that about the sod runways and the control tower. That's a new little point of pride for me with Timmy. I didn't know that. When they're open, because sometimes it rains a lot.
Yep.
I've had some fun on those runways. So okay, so let's talk a little bit about you first. So we want to talk about the airports in a second, but I want to talk about you first. Just so professionally, I did a little LinkedIn stalking, and your professional career, I think, follows like kind of maybe an expected route. Like you did some news, you did some radio.
Right.
And then you ended up in this PR role. I think that makes sense. But what about like aviation, Herwald? Like how did you get started with airplanes?
So I actually did not. I was never on an airplane until I was in college, and I flew from Cleveland, Ohio, to San Diego, California. Not the shortest of flight for your first flights, and I was scared to death to get on that plane. I thought I was like, "What in the world am I doing?" And I was kind of afraid to fly, a nervous flyer. And if you would have told me back then that I would know how to fly an airplane myself, I would have said you're nuts. But I think what kind of happened is sometimes, at least with me, whenever I'm apprehensive about something, I want to learn more about it. And for whatever reason, I ended up getting Microsoft Flight Simulator that a lot of people are aware of. This would have been one of the older versions, but I learned how to fly on the flight sim, both small planes and large planes. I learned how to land a 747 Cat 3 instrument landing, and then eventually my wife said, you should really like stop doing the computer game thing. Why don't you actually learn how to fly for real? And so I took an introductory flight lesson and loved it. So saved up some money, took the lessons, got my license in 2006, which is still whenever I was in the news world. I was not working at the airport, but whenever I left radio broadcasting, I ended up doing public relations for the county at the courthouse for the county board of supervisors. And then when a position opened up at the airport, I applied for it. And because I was a pilot, I think I have an interesting combination of skills with, the media background, the government background, and the aviation experience. So I feel very blessed to be able to work in this industry and kind of merge my love of aviation, my hobby with my career. So I'm loving it.
So that's a pretty cool story. Like, that is very similar to it's not that rare though. Like I was freaked out, so I wanted to learn more, and then I fell in love with it. Like Trent Palmer, right? Like arguably, I don't know, does he have the most subscribers right now of like aviation YouTubers? Like that's his story. I've heard him say on interviews like he was like so frightened, probably a little more frightened than you described for yourself, but he was like so freaked out he had to like do it. And then partially I think because that was a path to professional drone piloting at the time too. And then he like fell in love with it inadvertently because he put himself through it. Excuse me. So we're getting lots of questions in the chat, and I'm gonna jump ahead to one, but before I lose it. And actually, your proxies, the Timmerman Airport gang is in the chat, and your proxies are answering. But for those people who are not in the chat, Vincent asks, is my Cessna 172 or 182 allowed at Mitchell? Do I need to call ahead if it's busy? I live near Chicago.
Yeah, so you're welcome at Mitchell Airport at KMKE. So just follow your procedures for a Class Charlie approach. And traffic is down, operations are down right now. But you can certainly land and do a taxi back and take off with no issues whatsoever. If you want to park at one of the FBOs, we have two FBOs, Signature and AvFlight, and they do charge a ramp fee. I'm not sure exactly what they are for a light aircraft, but you would have to pay to park over there. But if you want to come in and just do a touch and go or a landing and taxi back and take off again, should be no problem.
I have landed there, and I flew from Timmerman to Mitchell, so I got both of your airports in one flight.
Yep.
And it's really short. It's a short flight it's a short hop. You don't even need to turn. You just take off. the winds are coming in the right direction. You just take off and land.
I mean, I feel that the controllers at Mitchell are very friendly. In fact, there was one time when I was just doing a scenic flight over downtown, and I was talking to Milwaukee Approach, and they actually said, "Hey, if you want to come in and do a landing, there's nothing going on right now. Come on in." So, unlike some other Class C airports, I think that you'll find the controllers pretty welcoming if they're able to accommodate.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that, and they seem to love aviation there. We always joke about an adjacent county's controllers that don't seem to love aviation, and I won't get you in trouble. You don't have to say anything. I'll do all the talking. But but the folks
but I wasn't going to say it. We've all encountered that.
Yeah. But I definitely think, like, I was lucky enough to go into that tower. It's like I'm pointing and people consider I'm pointing. There's that tower over your left shoulder. Yeah. Like that there camera. I don't know. It's all flipped. It's all backwards. Technology is very confusing. But like I was lucky enough to go up there for a tower tour. You probably had something to do with that. And everyone was so nice and welcoming, and they were so stoked about it. Like they're like, "All right, guys, check it out! Like, we got like a cargo plane taking off. Like, it's gonna be so dope." And they were like super excited about it, which I thought was pretty cool. So,
well, I'm glad you enjoyed the tower tour because there's no tower tours going on right now during the pandemic. So
yeah, someone could cough, take the whole airport down.
Got to be real careful with that.
So I want to ask you. I mean, it's kind of a bummer to talk about it, but like COVID, man, how are you doing?
I would say that this year has been the most challenging year in the history of aviation. And of course, it's not just for Milwaukee, it's every airport around the world. So, but just looking here in Milwaukee, in the middle of April, our passenger traffic on the airlines was down 97% because everybody was being told to stay home and not go anywhere.
Sure.
So the only people that were traveling were people who had an essential reason to travel. So, think of, there were some medical personnel, doctors and nurses that needed to fly to hot spots where the virus was, potentially getting out of control. People who had to travel to deal with end-of-life care issues for family members. And then also on the cargo side, the transport of medical supplies. And, think about all the online shopping that's going on. Some of those items are flown in. So, cargo gets even busier during pandemics. And airports like Milwaukee are the airports that are kind of like, central hubs for cargo coming into the state. So airports have to stay open. We don't close. It really is an essential part of our community's infrastructure.
So, and that's like, you mentioned something to me about that. You said that while traffic at Mitchell was changing and reducing, that traffic at Timmerman was like almost like inversely increasing. Which also just pointed at, like, in addition to the importance of, like, an international airport to be a hub for, like, moving all those supplies and those people, like, the reliever airport. Is that the right way to call Timmerman? Like, is it a reliever?
So Timmerman is considered a general aviation reliever airport to Mitchell. So it's really intended to focus more of the general aviation flying at Timmerman. So, and we did see, and we continue to see, an increase in operations at Timmerman compared to Mitchell. In fact, the gap has closed quite a bit. And I think that just speaking in rough numbers, I think that on a monthly basis, there's 4,000 operations at Timmerman and there's 5,000 at Mitchell. And they used to be like 10 times apart, but now they're converging, which is very interesting because general aviation flying, I always say, is the best form of social distancing. If you want to go flying by yourself in an airplane, you can be further away from the next closest human being than probably any other opportunity in life, right?
That's true.
And I think that people have time. There aren't as many other activities going on, no sporting events, concerts, things like that. So people are getting up in their airplanes and flying.
Sure. Yeah, well, and I think also those the people who have the means to fly like larger general aviation jets and stuff, it seems like they're just like, oh, I'm going to take my jet instead. I don't know.
True.
Maybe.
Yeah, there is some of that. Some private jet travel to avoid being on airlines as well.
Absolutely. Jonathan Christman has an idea for you. You don't have to say yes, but this is a thing that he thought might help when the recovery starts. He says, like in Las Vegas, there are slot machines in the airport. MK needs beer taps at every seat in the airport. So go ahead.
So yeah, we actually so this is a scaled down version of it, but the Miller Brew House, which is located pre-security in the Mitchell Terminal, has some tables with beer taps at the tables. Now that restaurant has been closed due to low passenger volumes, but once things ramp back up gradually, that restaurant will reopen. But it's self-serve beer taps right there at your table, and it works kind of like a gas pump. It just kind of keeps a meter going, and then when you close out your bill, they just add it to your check, and you're done.
This sounds like I gotta take my wife there for a date. She's like, but honey, I'm gonna Homer Simpson it.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting idea. So it sounds like this would be like in the actual gate areas or something like that, right? Where you could just swipe your credit card and pour yourself a beer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what he's implying, and frankly, I was actually going to say like a little on the nose with Milwaukee's reputation, but
interesting suggestion. Thank you. For that.
Yeah, well, take it. He's like, sweet, Jonathan. Yeah, you can. Can we have that one for free, Jonathan? We'll have that one for free. So let's talk about this a little bit more, though. What, in terms of, you've got the pandemic. This is the thing you guys have been kind of fighting at, and what are some of the things you've been doing to adjust at the airports now? Now that this is like, I think in the beginning we were all kind of hopeful, like, hey, this is going to be like a couple months of suckiness. Now it's kind of like, well, who knows how long this is? It's a long game now, right? So like, what are the things? What it's changed, and what's different now?
Yeah, so I mean, we're still. I said we were down 97% in April. We're still down about 65 to 70% now. So business travel has basically dried up. Their leisure travel is gradually coming back, but a lot of employers are just not allowing their employees to travel. And again, unless there's an essential need, if someone needs to go fix something or work on some equipment, they're still flying. But business travel is mostly not happening right now. And it is far worse than 9/11. It, like I said, it's the worst crisis in the history of aviation, and it's going to take a lot longer to recover. So, it's probably going to be, some people are saying 2 years, some are saying as long as 6 years to get back to where we were in 2019. But as far as what's changed in the airport, obviously face coverings are required for everybody. The airport is doing deep cleanings of all of the surfaces. We're encouraging social distancing as much as possible. However, I think that when people book a ticket on an airline, they understand that they are going to be getting on a narrow plane with lots of other people. So there was a stat that was released, I believe, within the last week, that said that you have like a 1 in 23 million chance of actually contracting COVID on a flight, which is you have a greater chance of being struck by lightning. So I think that, you're on a plane, there's fresh air, open up the vent above you, get fresh air blowing on you throughout the entire flight, and wear a mask. And the airlines are enforcing those masks. And if you refuse to wear it, the airlines will actually put you on a list, and you will not be able to fly with that airline ever again. So it's being taken very seriously. It's still being taken very seriously. And some airlines are taking temperatures of passengers upon boarding. A couple of the airlines, Southwest and Delta, are still capping the number of seats that can be booked. So they're capping it at about 2/3, so there can still be a middle seat open throughout the aircraft. And then just the other thing to be aware of is just with fewer passengers coming through, our shops and restaurants are not all open right now. So you may want to pack some food to bring with you because I'd say about half of our retail and dining locations are closed.
Sure. So the folks in the chat, and I think you kind of answered this, but they're asking about passenger counts. Like, they are increasing though.
They're gradually increasing. It depends on the day of the week. So it's Thursdays, Fridays, Sundays, and Mondays are busier because that's leisure travel. Leisure travelers travel over the weekend. If you're traveling in the middle of the week, the planes are going to be more empty because that would have normally been used by business travelers on a Tuesday or Wednesday, for instance. But the travel or the passenger levels are going to remain low for the foreseeable future. Now, there's fewer flights, so the planes aren't necessarily empty, but there's fewer flights, and the flights are going to leisure destinations more so than business destinations. So like American is starting next month adding nonstop service to Miami. United is flying to Tampa and Fort Myers. And, those are markets that, especially United to Tampa and Fort Myers, those are not hubs for United. So some of the airlines are changing their business models a little bit to fly to more leisure destinations, warm weather destinations, and de-emphasizing the business locations.
Rock on. I think I'm hearing a lot of people, just anecdotally, I'm hearing of people traveling for leisure more. I think also, like, after months and months of trying to stay, well, for me, in a basement, right? Like, I think it's like, okay, like now we have more information than we did a bunch of months ago, right? We understand more about the virus than we did before. We understand more about just what the risks are. We can make better informed decisions. And so I'm hearing a lot of people starting to get ready to take those leisure flights. They're feeling more comfortable. Also, I feel like it might be like a last hurrah before the winter, right? So,
fares are really low right now.
Super low.
There are some opportunities for people who may not have been able to afford to fly somewhere. They can now fly to visit friends or family members in other cities, and it's opening up some interesting opportunities for people that may not have ever been able to fly somewhere before. So, we are seeing, just looking at the makeup of passengers going through the airport, when I encounter people, I can tell that they haven't traveled before. They need some extra help. They don't exactly know what to expect or where they even need to go. So, there are some silver linings in this thing, and I think people are taking trips that they would not have expected to be able to take.
That's interesting, although maybe it's the right time for people to, like, I'm thinking about, I won't reveal her name, but a coworker I had at my old job, like, for work, like, we had to go through, we flew all the way to New York City for work, and it was her first ever flight. And props to you guys, because Milwaukee's a perfect, even on like non-COVID times, perfect airport for like a first-time flyer, because it's like organized very, for people who've never been there, it's organized very like logically. It's not like going to like LaGuardia or something like that where you're like going underneath things and around things, and then your gate's like inside of a bar or whatever. Like, it's very like streamlined, right? So people can go. There's like three terminals, right? Just three AB.
Yeah, we have C. There's concourses C, D, and E.
That makes sense.
We can get into that if you want, but yeah,
I would love to get into that. Why is that?
Well, so originally, this is decades and decades ago, probably before you and I were even alive.
Okay.
It was concourses A, B, and C. However, in a master plan for the airport decades ago, they had planned to build two more concourses, actually four more, two more on each side. So someone came up with a brilliant idea. Well, let's just rename A, B, and C. Let's rename those into C, D, and E. That way, when we build these other new concourses, those can be A and B, and then they'll all be in order. And then there would be an F and a G on the other side. Well, the concourses were never built, and so we still have C, D, and E, and they never changed them back. It's even though it sounds simple, like why don't you just change them? It's quite an expensive proposition to change that, and you have to work with all the airlines to get all of their, their technology updated, and the FAA has to get involved, and you have to redo all the signage everywhere, and so it hasn't been changed. I guess it doesn't really matter, but it's an interesting point.
That is awesome. That is because someone was like, what we're gonna do? We're gonna save all this money on these signs, right? Because we're planning ahead. So that leads me to the next thing, and I promised Nick Moore is in the chat. Nick's a guest alum on this show, and maybe he asked it in the chat so I can pull it up. But he wanted to know, he's not from around here, Harold. He doesn't know about the recombobulation area.
Yes.
Zone. Recombobulation zone?
It's an area. Yeah. So the history behind that is a previous airport director who was the longtime airport director of Mitchell Airport. His name is Barry Bateman. He came into the marketing office one day and said, okay, I got a great idea. He said, let's make a recombobulation area after the security checkpoint. And so, that's what in the industry is typically called a recomposure area. After you go through the checkpoint, you have to get all of your stuff, put your shoes back on, put your belt back on, gather all your belongings and all that stuff. So when the airport director came in and said, recombobulation area, let's have the maintenance department make some signs that say that, to put that after the checkpoint. And we said, that's not a word, right? Oh, yeah, I know it's not a word, but we just have to have a sense of humor. Let's put that up there. So those were installed after each security checkpoint on all three concourses.
The signs are long.
Yeah, well, recombobulation.
It's a long word.
Yeah. So that was brilliant on his part, because we've gotten more social media attention for those signs than probably anything we've ever done. So just for years now, people love that. They go through and it makes them laugh. It's stressful flying when you go through the security checkpoint, and it just puts a smile on people's faces. And TSA takes credit for it, but it's really not theirs. It was the airport's sign, and we made it happen. But it's one of those things that make the airport unique.
I remember first seeing that, right, and then going as I flew more and more, realizing that it was a special thing. I assumed that it was the official, the recombobulation. We're gonna recombobulate here, and I was like, oh wow, that's an interesting word choice to put in an official capacity. And then I was like, LAX or something, and I'm like, oh, where's the recombobulation area?
See, at LAX, you're discombobulated, and you never have the opportunity to recombobulate because they don't have an area for it.
That's true. You just never find yourself ever again. Yeah, Waukesha Pilot says TSA is the discombobulation area. And by the way, Waukesha Pilot, I think we were talking about your airport a little earlier. I saw in the chat, you were like, well, what about Waukesha? Yeah, we covered that, buddy. We covered that. He actually has another question. You and I were talking about this before the show started. Just kind of so guys, we're getting ready for the show, and right before we started, Harold's phone started ringing. He's like, I gotta take this. And I could hear him talking to somebody, and they were asking about this. 747-8 is staying at MKE tonight. It's newsworthy. People are calling you because they're concerned about this. Do you want to
Yeah. So
give a little insight into your job?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So Milwaukee Mitchell is the primary diversion airport for both Chicago airports. We actually get, on average, over 200 flights per year diverted from Chicago to Milwaukee. So sometimes they're regional jets, sometimes they're wide bodies, sometimes they're internationals. So right now there's a Cargolux 747 freighter aircraft that's parked on the south ramp down by College Avenue, and the winds were not favorable for that particular plane to land at Chicago, so they landed at Milwaukee instead, and they'll just sit on the ground in Milwaukee until Cargolux figures out what their plans are for that aircraft. But we've had, Emirates, Cathay Pacific, British Airways, Lufthansa. I mean, almost any major international airline has landed at Milwaukee due to diversions in Chicago. So sometimes they're only on the ground for an hour if they're waiting for thunderstorms to pass through, for example, and then other times they could be here for days if there's a maintenance issue. So, you never know when things are going to pop up like that, and we try to get out there and take pictures of these. Earlier, let's see, I think it was on Monday, we had a Delta A350 that landed at Milwaukee, and we posted it to our social media. So if you go to Mitchell Airport on Facebook or Twitter, you can see the pictures that we post whenever these, what we call unusual aircraft, end up in Milwaukee.
So let's talk, thank you for teeing that up, because you sent me, this is a few years ago now, but you sent me a cool video, and I'm just going to play it, and then we can talk about it. It's kind of a special treat arrival that you had covered once. That's a big airplane. That's like a skyscraper with wings.
Yeah, so that was the Airbus A380, the world's largest passenger aircraft, which we've actually hosted several times. Now, these were not diversions. These were intended for Milwaukee. So if you look at this particular one, you see how the engine, one of the engines is like a purple or pink color. So that was an engine that they were testing for the A350. So they actually mounted it on the A380 and they flew it to Milwaukee for cold weather testing. So that's why it was here. They've multiple times, Airbus has chosen Milwaukee to do their winter weather testing on new equipment. So that's what this particular one was. But a few years before that, we hosted the A380 whenever it was on its way to Oshkosh for the AirVenture. They actually flew from Toulouse to Milwaukee to go through customs, and then they flew from Milwaukee to Oshkosh. So, but yeah, we have a long history of partnership with Airbus.
That's amazing. I mean, that's just like, and I think that part of the reason I wanted to talk about that is just because I think people don't think of, right? Like when people think of like Midwestern airports or big international airports, they think of Chicago, right? Think of O'Hare. This is a truly massive aircraft, right? And like it's my local pride showing maybe a little bit, right? It's like we can like host that. You guys can host that without any trouble. The fact that they're still coming, they get the service they need from Mitchell as opposed to O'Hare or something like that. I don't know. I just think it's cool.
Yeah, and actually, we had an A380 land at Mitchell before O'Hare ever saw one.
That's a cool flex. I like that. I like that. You mentioned this a little bit, but Nick just asked another good question. How does AirVenture? How much does that impact your operations? Sorry, I know we're not talking about Timmerman at all, and I'm bummed about that. But MKE.
Well, that's okay. I mean, we can talk about Mitchell because it's probably there's just more to talk about. So AirVenture, we do see on years that it actually happens, unlike this year. There are a lot of people who travel. They fly into Milwaukee and drive up to AirVenture because it does draw people from all over the world. So that's one aspect. But also the air traffic controllers that work in Mitchell's tower, a lot of them actually work for for the Oshkosh airport operation. So there's a lot of air traffic controllers that are needed. So they pull a lot of those from Milwaukee, and maybe it's overtime or it's they're just kind of working part time on top of their regular duties. So and then there are a lot there's certainly more GA traffic at Mitchell and at Timmerman during AirVenture. There are people who fly into both airports and then drive up because they don't necessarily want the stress of landing there. Now I know that you've landed there, Ryan, and I've never done that, but some people they just want to land somewhere around Milwaukee and then just drive the rest of the way.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I was not the pilot in command of that particular leg, but I did shout some airspeeds to Marty, the moderator in the chat right now. But yeah, that was it. It's funny, right? Like for us, we're so blessed. Hashtag blessed. We're so blessed to be so close to Oshkosh that it's actually quicker, I think, to drive to AirVenture from like the general Milwaukee area than it is to fly out of Timmerman and do normally just because there's the special approach, right? The special approach procedure, the NOTAM. If you just go direct, it's like no time at all to fly up to Oshkosh. But so yeah, it's I get it. Like I think if you're coming out of town, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Just
drive up 41, baby. So okay, let's talk a little bit about I've got hometown pride, and I wanted to talk to you about COVID, all this stuff that's happening right now. Is there any think about like supporting my hometown airport? Like you mentioned me, like you think it's important for people to know it's important to support your hometown airport. And like why would you say that?
Well, and I know you have viewers from all over, so not everyone is from Milwaukee, and this really could apply to anybody's community, and that is to support your hometown airport and not go to other airports that might be nearby or in the region. And here's why, and it does apply to COVID. As we emerge from the pandemic gradually over time, there are going to be winners and losers among airports. So the airports that are going to be winners are the ones that get the support from their community and that support the flights that they have. For us here in Milwaukee, we have O'Hare down the road, not too far away, but the airlines look at where people board flights. So if you're boarding flights at O'Hare, you're helping O'Hare get more flights, and you're actually taking flights away from Milwaukee. So it's a business just like anything else. So you're actually hurting your local community by not supporting your local community's airport. I often hear from people who say, well, I would use Milwaukee, but they don't have nonstop service to Europe, or they don't, whatever the destination is. And instead of flying out of Milwaukee and connecting somewhere, they're connecting by car going to O'Hare. It's still a connection. It's still not a nonstop experience. So if you're connecting by car anyway, why not connect by air and support your hometown airport? When you look at international travel to Europe, for instance, if everybody from Wisconsin that flies out of O'Hare to Europe would fly out of Milwaukee instead, we would have 3 wide-body planes every day to Europe, because the airlines would add those, because they would see all these people are flying out of Milwaukee to go to Europe. We better put some planes there that fly directly to Europe. So When just like anything else, if you want to go see a baseball game and you're a Milwaukeean, you're going to go watch the Brewers play at Miller Park or American Family Ballpark. If you want to see a football game, you're going to see the Packers. You're not going to go see the Cubs. You're not going to go to a Bears game. So by flying out of O'Hare, you're a Bears fan. We want you to support Wisconsin and Milwaukee instead.
That was good. I like that. I got riled up. And Jason in the chat said, he's like, well, it's kind of a chicken and an egg thing, right? Like, but the truth is that the airline is never going to be the chicken or the egg or whatever, which one it is in the metaphor, right? Like it's always going to be where the passengers are choosing to fly from that motivates those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, if you're flying down to O'Hare, they're going to say, well, if everyone from Wisconsin is willing to drive down to O'Hare, then we don't need to worry about adding flights in Milwaukee. So, just like anything else, if you look at retail stores or restaurants, you put your product where the customers are. But if they're willing to drive a far distance, you don't even need to do that.
Right. I would say, too, if you're in the Milwaukee area, you should connect via aircraft to O'Hare if you need to, because that flight from a pilot's perspective is bonkers. It is bonkers, guys. It's like you're cruising in a jet, like a full airliner jet at like 7,000 feet. Like I have literally been flying down in. So this is so for those that don't know, we haven't even talked about this. Harold and I used to be partners in an airplane together. The airplane you guys see in the intro of the show, 7 Mike Alpha, that is the aircraft that I used to be a partnership with Harold in before I moved over to 4 Uniform Victor. And I was flying down the coast to go to Chicago in 7 Mike Alpha and like heard on approach, like the airliner like making his way down, and I looked over and sure enough, like I'm the same altitude as this guy. He's just going like super fast. like look over and he's like, shoo. You don't even have to. I don't know. It's super cool. It's a fun little trip, and it adds like no. It's not even like a cost thing. It's actually, I think when I figured it out last time, the gas, parking, and just the gas and the parking were more than the like little connector leg to O'Hare for that particular flight that I needed to route.
Even if it's a little more expensive to fly out of Milwaukee, we really need to take ownership of our airport. We need to change the mindset that this is our community's airport. We all own it. We need to support what we own, and we do that with other parts of our life, but we need to treat the airport the same way we do with other things, and not just keep throwing all of our dollars to Chicago.
Yeah.
And like I said, it makes you a Bears fan. So you don't want to be a Bears fan, right?
I don't know. I don't think there are. If you're a Bears fan, say hi in the chat. We'd love to hear what you think about all this. Nathan Ballard is asking. He asked earlier about a TFR over the Bronze Fons, which I thought was an interesting dig. But he wants to know, what's the craziest or wackiest thing that has ever happened in your time at MKE?
Well, I don't know if it's the craziest thing. I mean, wildlife is always interesting because, we want to make sure that there are no conflicts between wildlife and aircraft. And this wasn't on the airfield, but I actually saw a deer run all the way through the baggage claim roadway once. And it was early in the morning, and I don't know where it went after that, but it was a buck, with I don't know however many points, and it just went running all the way through baggage claim. So you just never know what you're going to see. But an interesting thing that most people may not realize is airports like ours have full-time wildlife biologists that work at the airport every day. So I think we have like 3 of them. And their whole thing is to try to do everything they can to mitigate wildlife, whether it's mammals or birds or anything else that could cause any interference with aircraft. So, inspecting fences, making sure that nothing can burrow underground, making it completely uncomfortable for animals or birds to be there. When there's fog or very low ceilings, oftentimes there can be a lot of birds that are down close to the ground, and we actually have pyrotechnics that we can use and different noisemakers to harass the birds and keep them away from the runway. So that's kind of interesting. There's so many things that happen that the passengers have no idea are going on at airports to make sure that they have a safe and pleasant experience. So does that answer the question? I thought the deer was interesting.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. I was going to say, you just made me think of the other side of it. Everyone, it's cliche to talk about, but snow removal for us is no small feat. And that's always impressed me.
We, years ago, the runways would be shut down for hours for snow removal, and the airport has invested millions of dollars in snow removal equipment. And it's about 20 or 25 pieces of equipment that can go down the runway in one pass and clear a 2-mile long, 200-foot wide runway in 18 minutes on average. I mean, that's pretty impressive when you think about how long it takes to clear your driveway at home, right?
I feel like I need to bum a ride, and I wanna. How do I get to drive one of those?
I don't know if you can drive them, but I can actually. If you ever want to do a video or an episode, I could put you in a ride along with one of those drivers.
That
you
would
could
be
go
so
with
cool.
them. Yeah,
that would be so cool.
It's the macho environment, all these big pieces of equipment, and
yeah. I got my plaid shirt on. I'd fit right in. Fit right in. Zach asks, and I hope you're cool. People are just asking questions now, and I love this. Zach is asking, just what's a normal day in your life look like at the airport?
So a normal day is monitoring social media and traditional media, a lot of writing, a lot of emails. It's mostly an office job, but I do like to get around the terminal and interact with passengers and help them if there's anything I can help people with, even if it's just carrying their luggage down to ticketing or just looking out for the customer experience. If there's any signage changes that need to be made, it's fun working in the aviation environment, but it's really not a whole lot different than a lot of other day-to-day office jobs.
Yeah, but day-to-day office jobs, you don't get phone calls at 8:25 about a 747 that no one expected.
I would say anytime that I can be out on the airfield and experiencing something like, different aircraft that come in or special events, the spot landing contest and the flower drop contest at Timmerman that, Ryan, you're very heavily involved in those as well. I would say anytime around airplanes is definitely the highlight of the day for me.
Yes, that's a whole nother. We didn't even have time to talk about this spot landing contest because I almost died for you, man.
Yeah.
Supposedly, I mean, it hurt. It was like, what are you guys talking about? I was announcing a spot landing contest at Timmerman. We do a live stream so people, because depending on where the winds are, you can't necessarily be super close to the runway, and so we'll have a video camera running a live stream, and I just narrate it, kind of goof. I don't know, I insult everybody. That's what I do. And Herwald was nice enough and brought pizzas out to the field so I could keep eating, all of us, the judges and everybody. And a hornet rode up into my mouth and definitely stung me 4 times in the mouth. And I kept going. The
show must not end.
Right.
So,
but
you're a trooper. You're the only person I know that's ever been stung inside their mouth.
Oh, it's so bad. It was really bad. I would not, 0 stars, do not recommend. But so the almost died thing, I mean, I was being a little hyperbolic, but there's another pilot that I think we both know, Christy, and Christy's a paramedic. And when she heard that happening on the live stream, she was looking for a pen at the FBO because she didn't know, like, if it had stung me in the throat, even though I'm not, like, allergic, she was, like, pretty sure she was going to have to, like, trach me. And I said, but what about the fire department on the field? Like, wouldn't they just do that to me? And she's like, they would never make it in time. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
So
Anyway.
you really did almost die. Yeah.
I don't know. I think she just wanted to make me feel bad about it. Before we wrap up, are you cool if we play a game before we wrap up for the night?
Let's do it.
All right. So I got this game called Short Final. And basically, as you guys know, the points don't... Well, there are no points because I forget to assign them. And, sorry, they're like, how did it taste? Like honey? No, it did not taste like honey. It tasted like pain. It's really bad, guys. Don't ever do that. So, Harold, I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions. You can give you long, short answer. I don't care. There are no rules, but I'm gonna put some dramatic music on that you won't be able to hear. And there we go. And hit our little timer. All right, Harold, my good friend. You work at an international airport. What's your favorite airliner?
My favorite airliner, I would have to say the 747-800.
So the one that's there today.
Yes.
Awesome. What about your favorite aviation movie?
Airplane, no question.
Nice. Craziest. Well, we talked about the craziest thing you've seen at the airport was the wildlife stuff. Anything else?
Yeah. There's also the guy who got naked out on the ramp. Someone who left the building. Yeah. So.
What?
Yeah. He had to be arrested.
Oh, maybe we talk about that in a minute. All right. tail wheel or nose wheel?
Well, I guess for my situation, nose wheel.
Fair enough. All right. You're a private pilot. We've talked about it a little bit. Favorite airport you've ever landed at?
Favorite airport I've landed at? Probably La Crosse, right along the river there. Very
that's
beautiful.
Good. Yeah, that's beautiful. And then you've talked a little bit about special aircraft that have come in. What's the craziest or coolest airplane you've seen land at MKE?
Probably the A380. Seeing Air Force One is also a highlight anytime that comes in. So, yeah.
We didn't even talk about that. That's happening a lot right now.
Every 4 years, it happens a lot.
So,
no matter who the president is, there's lots of visits from Air Force One every 4 years.
And what's that? I mean, we're almost out of time, but Air Force One, what's that like for you?
So there's a ramp freeze. No vehicles or airplanes can be moving for that 10 or 15 minute period. The 128th Air Refueling Wing handles that aircraft. It doesn't come to the terminal. It doesn't go to any of the FBOs. But heavy security, Secret Service in the control tower. But other than that, it's a normal landing, and it's something that the airfield can easily accommodate.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about that there's this whole other side of the field, which is the refueling wing. Which is one of my favorite things to do. Is you guys have these amazing observation areas, yep. And if the wind's coming, well, I think there's one on every. Is it just north and south, or are they also east and west situated? I guess I never looked.
Yeah, we have an observation area on the north end of the field at Layton, and then there's one on the west end at 6th Street, at the west end of the east-west runway. So those are the two locations.
That's where I'm thinking. Okay, yeah. So the north one, for some reason, is my favorite. I don't know why. And it's fun, guys. You can go there, and when the refueling wing is doing pattern work, mm-hmm. It's just insane. You have this giant refueling aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, just doing pattern work like the rest of us. So
yeah, and they take those turns steep.
Yeah, no, they go for it. It's impressive. I mean, they got to keep it in tight. That's a lot of tax dollars. So, everyone's blown away by Secret Service in the tower.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Got to make sure that they're doing things correctly.
Yeah. All right. Anyone have any last question before we hang up? Also, I'll let you know someone in the chat's offering you a free flight review. So, well,
I just had one last month.
well, you can always do another one and
next time. Yeah.
Kick that ball down the court. Dude, Harold, this has been awesome. It's good to catch up with you, brother. I haven't seen you. We don't see each other. Yeah, I appreciate you coming out. And let's make sure to. Well, we're gonna get together for I think the next thing is the flower drop competition at Timmerman.
Yep. So that'll be in June, and that's always a good time. It'll probably be the first Saturday in June. We will set the dates for next year for that and for the landing contest in September. But yeah, always happy to meet people at those events. And, if anyone has any other questions and they want to reach me, it's hmester@mitchellairport.com. I'm always happy to have a dialogue and make some new friends.
That's dangerous with this group. That's dangerous. So, all right, guys. Well, dude, Harold, this has been awesome. Thanks for taking the time. I know it's late tonight for us, but really good to catch up with you. And thanks for giving us a little window into what it's like, even with COVID right now at an how did that did not come out right? International airport. I was not news reporter trained like you. You've been perfectly enunciating all night. All right.
Well, so the vodka hasn't had that bad of an impact on me, so that's good. It's not peeing, it's the vodka, so.
Oh. All right.
Just kidding.
All right, everybody. That was fun. It's always good to catch up with your aviation buddies, and it's awesome to always do it with all of you, my other aviation family on the internet. Remember, tune in next week for Thorny. His name, the call sign Thorny, Major Brewer, Thorny Brewer, Thunderbird 3. Hope he's not watching this one. He's like, what am I in for? But that'll be really fun. And you know the drill. Share it, subscribe it, all that jazz. And we'll see you guys in the debrief in a little bit. Talk to you guys later. Thanks so much.